Let's bring now into the discussion two gentlemen that have a lot of personal stake in today's development. We're joined by Rabbi Mark Schneier, American Jewish Rabbi Mark Schneier, special advisor to the King of Bahrain and founder of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. He speaks to us from New York. And we are joined from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates by Ross Creel, president of the Jewish community of the Emirates. Yes, there is a Jewish community in the Emirates. First, Rabbi Schneier, I want to start with you and say many were skeptical about it, but you said by the end of the decade, if you count this year as part of the previous decade, that Israel would have full diplomatic relations with an Arab state in the Gulf. So I think the big question is, how far can this go now from here?
First, if you recall, I made that prediction on your show.
You did.
And I have been involved these past several months in terms of these discussions that have led up to this historic day. Just recently, 4 weeks ago, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia had asked me to write an op-ed. I was the first rabbi ever to write an op-ed in the Arab News. The title was, "Will COVID-19 Bring About Peace in the Middle East?" I wrote a similar op-ed this week in USA Today, the largest newspaper in the United States. So I'm sure if you use your imagination, you can infer of my involvement here. How far can this go? This, I know, will have a domino effect. You will have other Gulf states followed. As I mentioned on your show previously, this is a horse race. It's a very healthy competition that's taking place within the Arabian Gulf. UAE is the first to cross the finish line, but closely behind are countries like Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Oman, and I'm buoyantly optimistic. I must tell you personally, 12 years of giving time, energy, and resources with several others in the Gulf to really celebrate this historic day.
Right. Now, Ross, perhaps just a word, first of all, about what is the Jewish community there in the Emirates, and just your reaction when you heard this news today. I mean, how did you feel about it?
I'll start with the second question. Thrilled, amazed. Unlike Rabbi Schneier, I did not anticipate this happening so quickly. In fact, I just told a journalist an hour before it was announced that I thought it was going to take years. So simply amazed and joyful.
Tell us a little about the Jewish community in the Emirates and what would it mean for them, for example, to get on a flight from Dubai to Tel Aviv?
Well, you've raised exactly the point, not to have to fly through Amman or Istanbul or Cyprus, and just to be able to fly directly from Dubai to Ben Gurion, a wonderful 4-hour flight, is like a dream for us. And to answer your question about our community, we have a lovely, flourishing, diverse community reflecting the beauty and richness of the Jewish world. And I just can't wait to invite our Jewish friends and visitors to come and visit and see it for themselves.
I'm sure many Israelis would be looking forward to that. Rabbi Schneier, as you just heard, there were many skeptics, even there in the Jewish community in Dubai, that the UAE would go this far, full diplomatic relations, without, for example, waiting for a final peace deal between Israel and the Palestinians. What do you think was the factor that pushed them to make that dramatic step at this time?
I often say that in life, no tension, no deal. There were three forces that brought about this tension to make this deal. Number one, COVID-19. And I've heard this from Gulf leaders across the Arabian Gulf, that with our resources and wealth and Israel's brain trust and technology, we could be the region to find the cure and the panacea to cure the COVID-19 for the world. That's number one, COVID-19. Number two, the tension over the possible annexation of the West Bank, which very much led, let's remember, it was UAE, Yusuf Al-Otaiba, who I actually communicated with this morning. He was the one who made that public appeal in Yediot Ahronot, asking the Israeli public, please, to weigh in and to wait on any possible annexation, if not even halt that whole initiative, because there are good things to come. And of course, the third, which is a continuous existentialist threat is Iran and its satellites. So again, no tension, no deal. Three contributing forces of tension: COVID-19, annexation of the West Bank, and Iran.
Ross, I mentioned about perhaps Israelis coming to Dubai. In fact, many of them have, and to other places in the Emirates using foreign passports. I should say that I myself have been in Dubai several times and in Abu Dhabi on my U.S. passport. But it's one thing for governments to come to a peace agreement, another for the people there. On the ground, let me ask you, how ready do you think, the community, at least in Dubai and elsewhere in the Emirates, ready, for example, to welcome Israelis as visitors, as tourists to those Gulf states?
Well, I'd say two things. The first is that my personal experience is that my Emirati friends have a pent-up interest about everything Jewish. They can't wait to try Jewish food and try it in Israel. They can't wait to see the old city and visit holy sites. So there's a real, I think, deep excitement on the Emirati side after so many years to at last encounter Israel and Israelis. And the second thing that I would say is that Emiratis have a deep trust in their leaders. And I think it's a trust that is well deserved. And I think the fact that their leaders have shown such courage and foresight in recognizing Israel and being willing to enter into full diplomatic ties, I think that will have a profound effect on the Emirati mindset. And I think they will be very, very willing to encourage Israelis to come here and experience the UAE. And I always say to Jews all around the world that the experience of being in the UAE, the friendship, the hospitality, is something that has a profoundly positive effect on your whole outlook, a very hopeful thing. And that's why I'm so excited for Israelis to come to the UAE and see it for themselves.
I'm sure many will. And Rabbi Schneier, you said, another thing you said on our show was Israel would have to at least suspend any annexation plans of the West Bank for a step like this to happen. And that did happen with Prime Minister Netanyahu. So now for other countries like Bahrain and Oman, what steps could the Israeli government be taking that maybe to also trigger them to make this move?
First, you might want to call me prophetic. I seem to be making some wonderful predictions.
Keep going. Let's see.
On your show. I told you, there's going to be a domino effect. I know this for a fact. The question is, will it be Bahrain, Qatar? We speak about the Emiratis welcoming Israelis. Let's remember, Qatar has made very, very clear that in 2022, the World Cup, all Israelis are welcome to come. These are all major benchmarks and steps. Remember, it took the Israelites 40 years to get to the promised land. And on your show, I predicted that Gulf-Israel relations would happen, would not take 40 years. There would be some very exciting benchmarks along the way. Congratulations to the UAE on winning the race. But I know that the other countries are right behind them.
All right. Ross, briefly, I just want to hear from you. You're there in Dubai. What message do you have now to our viewers in the Jewish world and to those who are watching here in Israel?
The first thing I want to say is God bless the UAE. It's such a wonderful country. It's shown such courage in taking these steps. And I'd really want to call on Jews all around the world to view the Muslim world in a completely different way, and to see through this announcement that if there was a sense of cynicism, a sense that progress can't be made, I think the UAE has demonstrated that we need to look at things completely differently. We need to look at our Muslim brothers differently, and we need to be positive and hopeful about opportunities for peace in the region.
Okay, Ross Creel, president of the Jewish community of the Emirates, which is probably going to get more widely known than it has in the past, and Rabbi Mark Schneier from New York. Thank you for joining us on this special edition on I-24 News.